You guys don't understand how privileged you guys are. Hey, thank you. Really, you guys don't know how privileged you are to have actual talented musicians in your ministry, even though I play. I really appreciate listening to you guys when I get to come here, so I do appreciate that. Is there any way I can get the TV switched over?
Yep.
I got what I think to be an awesome PowerPoint coming up. Oh, maybe.
Give it a second.
Perfect. Well, in the meantime, my name is Isaac. I'm one of the kind of part-time leaders here, I guess you could say. I grew up in this church. I've been going here since I was 6. I've been around for quite a bit. I've worked here over the summer. I know for a lot of you guys, your only interaction with me is maybe through Facebook. In that case, to kind of give you guys a little bit of help. That's me. That's my profile picture. Or if you guys have known me for a little while, maybe you remember me as this guy. Or if you guys have known me for a little bit longer than that, maybe this is how you think of me. Or if you guys have known me for a really long time, there's a good chance this is how you think of me.
Love it.
Lo and behold, however you know me, however you choose to think of me, good luck getting that out of your head. Nonetheless, my name is Isaac. I'm here. Jeremy's asked me to come speak to you guys. If you guys are new to our ministry, or maybe you haven't been here in a couple weeks, you missed one or two, right now we're going through a series, and we're talking about the idea of having little book, big truth. We're taking a look at some of the smaller, the more sometimes forgotten books of the Bible that you wouldn't really think about sometimes. And tonight we're going to be looking at the book of Haggai. Yeah, Haggai. Got a very awesome name to it. I doubt any of you guys have a friend on Facebook list with the first name Haggai, but it's awesome. It's kind of awkward, but his name, apart from being wonderful, he's one of the minor prophets. He wrote a message to Israel. He's kind of shoved in the back of the Old Testament in that group of minor prophets. But what's interesting about him is he is probably one of, if not the most successful prophets to ever write in the Bible. We're going to look at how in a second. And it's crazy to think of just what a simple book like his. It's only 2 chapters long. If you guys got your Bibles, you can turn there and try and find it. But if not, it's only 2 chapters long. I'm going to be touching on it with the PowerPoints for, so you guys can kind of follow along with me. But this little book that a lot of people, the first time they pick up, they try and read it, doesn't make a lot of sense. They don't really kind of figure it out, because it is important to know what's going on at the time. And as I was doing a little bit of my research for this lesson tonight, I came across this one guy, his commentary, and this is what this guy had to say about the book. He said, "The reason God preserved this book for all time and for all humanity is its permanent value, which is twofold. The book of Haggai, first, is a revelation of the perils that often accompany a period of adversity. Second, it reveals the duty of people of faith in such a period and God's resources. In other words, Haggai exposes the perils that accompany times where there are discouraging circumstances and when hope burns dim. And it helps us to see what the duty of God's people should be in such times. And, best part, how God will help us." So if you read it like that, with that sort of perspective, hopefully I can motivate you guys to get a little bit more interested in this book. But again, it's important to know what's going on. See, at this time period, before we even jump into the text, what happened in this time period, just for you guys, I'll get that out. Look at that. What happened in this time period, you guys kind of understand what happens in the storyline of the Old Testament. The Israelites, they've already been defeated by another nation called Babylon. The Babylonians had defeated the nation of Israel. They were conquered, and kind of their punishment for being conquered was what the Babylonians did. They took the people out of their homeland and they spread them out all into these different areas, just to kind of disperse the people, and they're all living in exile away from their homeland. But luckily, a little while later, the Babylonians were then conquered by another group of people. And the new king comes in and says, well, who are you guys? Well, we're the Israelites. Like, what are you guys doing here? Well, we were conquered by the Babylonians, so we're just kind of captive to them. We're living over here. The king says, well, you guys want to go home? Said, yeah, we want to go home. Well, I got no problem with you. You guys want to go home? We want to go home. So the Israelites get up and they start moving back to the homeland, kind of in waves, different groups of people coming back to their homeland, to the nation. And they get back, and they're starting to, like build their lives together. They start building homes for themselves again. They start to build the temple, but they eventually put that on hold. They go through some tough times with the temple. They try and get like a food situation going on. They plant crops, get food and wells and everything. But again, they're trying to start an economy, but their money situation just isn't working out because of inflation. So it's making it a really tough time. And they decide, you know what, like we got so much going on, there's no way we can really kind of prosper as a nation at this point. They're really discouraged. In comes Haggai with a special message from God. And this is what he has to say. The first thing he says when Haggai comes onto the scene, immediately the first thing he criticizes is their houses, of all things. And he's comparing their personal physical houses to the temple that they've decided to kind of let go. He says, is it time for you yourselves to dwell in your paneled houses while this house, meaning the temple, lies in ruins? Like, what's going on with you guys right now? Again, a little understanding. A paneled house was a big deal. Okay, these people didn't just put stone on top of stone at a roof house. Like, you had paneled houses in this day, you were rich, you were cool, because you obviously took a lot of time to build your house. You were cool. You had a paneled house. And Haggai comes onto the scene and says, look, you guys are living in beautiful paneled houses while God's house is sitting over here in ruins, doing nothing. What is wrong with you guys? It's important to understand this too, because at this time, culturally, your temple as a nation was a symbol to all the other nations around you of how important your God was to you. Okay, so a smaller nation would probably have an altar or a little building that they'd have. Other nations, the larger nations, they'd have like a big idol, their own temple, their own version of a synagogue or whatever. But the Israelites, God's chosen people, the people who follow the one true God, their temple is in ruins. And they just decided, we don't want to rebuild it right now. So the message they are sending to all the other people around them is, our God is not really important to us right now. That's the context that we're looking at here. That's why Haggai is so upset. And he comes to these people and he says, what is wrong with you? This temple, this symbol of your spiritual life, you are doing absolutely nothing with it. And it is embarrassing to God that you guys are doing nothing about it. That's how he comes onto the scene. Obviously upset. And to relate this kind of to our lives just for a second here before we go on, as I said, the Israelites are going through a lot of bad stuff. You see how they just can't get food to grow at this point. Their water situation is rough, and they have basically no money because their money is practically worthless because of all the inflation. They said, look, we're trying to get everything figured out. The temple, our spiritual lives, our spiritual symbol, that can wait just for a little bit. Let's try and get this earthly situation, our personal, our physical situation figured out first. And Haggai rebukes them for it. He says, no, that's not how it's going to happen. That can't happen. Your number one priority has got to be the temple, your spiritual life. And guys, I'm not going to stand up here and tell you this is easy, but your spiritual life has got to be your number one priority above everything else. I'm not going to tell you that it's easy. All right? If some of you guys are older that have been around a little bit longer, maybe you've heard me share my testimony. I'm not going to go into detail tonight, but maybe you've heard some of the things that I went through when I was in college. It was rough. But me, of all people. I'm not trying to make myself look good, but I grew up in church. I was actively involved in the youth ministry. I went to Bible college, the largest Christian university in the world at this point. Represent. And on top of all that, I was a ministry major, okay? I was studying church ministries. I was studying the Bible. You would think that me, of all people, would have no problem with my spiritual life, with seeing God as important. But I remember those times. I remember waking up some days where I just had no desire to talk to God. Waking up like, just don't. Today I just don't. Yeah, I'm not proud of that, guys, but I mean, it's honest. I'm saying that to show you that I understand that. I understand that we go through tough times, and I understand how difficult it is to see our spiritual life as being important, and to have that image just kind of sit there in your life as kind of nothing. And that's where the Israelites are at this point. It's unfortunate, and this is the message that Haggai is bringing to these people. Look, you got to get this figured out. Before anything else, you got to get this figured out. And this message goes on, and this next part is kind of funny in my mind, the way I read it, is that as soon as he's done this section here, at the end of that message, to get your temple together, this is what happens next. Then Zerubbabel, which time out, that's an awesome name. I really wish my wife, whoever she is, lets me name our first kid Zerubbabel. Just because his initials will be ZZ, he'll be Zerubbabel Zywczok. Anyways, the book of Haggai continues. They say, Zerubbabel, the son of Shealtiel, and Joshua, the son of Jehozadak, the high priest, with all the remnant of the people, obeyed the voice of the Lord their God and the words of Haggai the prophet, and the Lord their God, as the Lord their God had sent him. And the people feared the Lord. So Haggai gives us this solid message, and then 2 verses later, the Israelites obeyed the voice of the Lord. Now, this is why I find this funny, because if you read through the Old Testament, you see the different ways that the Israelite people mess up, and big time. There's like all kinds of different people that like write to them, give them stern messages. Haggai comes on the scene, like, you got to do this. Like, this is a big problem for you. Like, why are you not doing this? You need to fix this. And then people go, okay. Yeah, like, have you ever had an argument with someone where like you're just getting upset, like, dude, like, what's wrong with you? Like, how can you do this? Like, and then they agree with you. It's like, okay. Where do I go from here now? I can just imagine, if this was me, this is how I'd imagine that happening. And it would be so cool to be Haggai, to be able to say, yo, Jeremiah, Ezra, see those people, all you other prophets, listen to me, first try. That was me. I would be excited about that. That's why I find it kind of funny. But it's beautiful how a stern message comes to these people, they accept it, and they start building the temple. Excuse me. But unfortunately, as they start building the temple, they begin to get a little bit discouraged because there's a lot of people on like the construction committee who are older, and they remember the good old days, like before they got conquered, their last temple was destroyed. They remember Solomon's temple. Solomon's temple at this time probably would have been the biggest building in the world at that point. And they remember how great and how awesome Solomon's temple was, because God was so important to them at that point. It was beautiful. And these people remember that, and they're like, this thing we're building, it's not going to be that good. It's never going to be as good as Solomon's temple. And obviously through that, they start comparing, and they start to get discouraged. So after a couple months go by, Haggai comes back on the scene. And he has another message to him. This is getting into chapter 2. Come on. Oops. Nope, that was right. So these people are starting to get discouraged. And Haggai comes back and says, okay, I got another message for you guys. I know you're getting discouraged. I know things probably aren't where you guys would like them to be. But look, yet now be strong, O Zerubbabel, declares the Lord. Be strong, O Joshua, son of Jehozadak, the high priest. Be strong, all you people of the land, declares the Lord. Work, for I am with you, declares the Lord, according to the covenant I made with you when you came out of Egypt. My spirit remains in your midst. Fear not. Because look, guys, I understand that things are not going how you like them. I know it's not where you want them to be right now. but I am here for you guys, and I am working with you. I want to see you guys succeed. This is the message that he gives to him. And he continues on, and he says something. He finishes off this section with an even better passage. It's so cool the way he sums this up. He says, I know you guys will probably remember how the temple used to be, how Solomon's temple used to be awesome and great. And you may not think it's going to be great. But listen to this. The latter glory of this house shall be greater than the former, says the Lord. And in this place I will give peace, declares the Lord of hosts. What's going to happen in the future is going to be so much better than what you guys remember. Trust me. And I've seen you guys start. I am proud of you guys for starting to build the temple. I am proud of you guys. So I will give peace. At this time, for a nation, the greatest thing you could ask for is peace. So you didn't have to worry about other nations coming and fighting and attacking you. Having peace as a nation was amazing. Peace and security. It was great. God says, I am proud of you guys for starting this building process. Because of that, I'm going to give you peace. The thing that you guys probably want most as a nation. It's a beautiful way to end the passage. So the project of building the temple and getting everything back on track continues. And you keep going. And naturally, things start to get a little weird because at that point, they're kind of back to that same way of thinking of how, like we're working, we're happy to be working. We do think that the temple is a big deal, but like what's up with like our current situation? You guys remember I said that they were having trouble with their crops and getting their economy back on track. It wasn't, again, quite where they expected to be. And it's not actually in the Bible, but a lot of historians believe this, and a lot of different Bible scholars, that the thinking of these people was that, I'm building the temple, like I'm deserving of this. Like, you see how I'm working, God? How come I'm not seeing the fruits of my labor? Like, I really think that I should be rewarded a little bit better with what I'm doing. Does that make sense to you guys? This is what we believe they're thinking to be. And then Haggai comes back. This is a couple months after they have been building the temple. So he comes back to the people again. And he asks them these really weird questions at the start of chapter 2. He calls the leaders of the construction committee, the Zerubbabel and Joshua and all the other people. He says, okay, listen, I got a couple questions for you guys. So you have a piece of meat that you're going to sacrifice. It's a very clean piece of meat that you're going to sacrifice to God. If you put that meat in a bag, does the bag become holy? And the leader's like, no, probably not. I don't think so. Why are you asking us that? He's like, well, no, wait a second. So if you, as a clean person, if you're clean and you're cool with your healthiness, and you go and you touch a dead body, does the dead body become clean and healthy? And the leader's like, well, no. It's not how it works. If anything, you probably get sick from touching that dead body. And I go, look, this is the illustration I'm trying to make. That's what Haggai says. He says, look, this is the illustration I'm trying to make. You guys, you think that because you can touch the temple, you're building a temple, you can touch the temple, you can then become healthy? Okay, you guys can probably follow this here, smart group. You can touch someone else and get sick, right? But you can't touch somebody else and get healthy. Make sense? Nod your head if you understand this. Okay, good. Appreciate you guys. This is the mindset of these people. Like, we're touching the temple that is righteous and great. How come we're not getting the blessings that we should? How come we're not getting this sort of reward that we feel that we should have? Haggai gives them these messages, and this is what he has to say. After that, look, I understand again that it's not going to be where you guys think, but this is the message that God gives through Haggai to the people. He says, all right, consider from this day onward, from this 24th day of the 9th month, since the day the foundation of the Lord's temple was laid, consider. Is the seed yet in the barn? The answer is no. Indeed, the vine, the fig tree, the pomegranate, and the olive tree have yielded nothing. But from this day on, I will bless you. He starts off this by saying something really important. Like, consider from this day onward. He's like, mark this down. Okay, write this down. Think about this. Lock this up in your mind somewhere. Like, remember this day. Okay? You guys remember how things were before you started building the temple? You remember how bad things were then? It was bad. Like, the vine, the fig tree, the pomegranate, the olive tree, basically everything you guys tried to do yielded nothing. Nothing happened before you guys even put the foundation of the temple down. Things have gotten better. But remember this day. Remember this day. This is the day you guys are going to look back on. And from this day starting, I'm going to not just give you guys the peace and security that I promised before. Because I'm proud of you guys for continuing to build my temple, I am going to give you blessings beyond what you guys can imagine. Remember this day is the day that happened. He's saying that remember this day in the sense of, think of it this way. 2010, Winter Olympics, last Sunday, Canada versus US, gold medal game. Do you guys remember where you were when you watched that game? Yeah, actually, believe it or not, I was in this room. That was our snow camp weekend, was that weekend when we were, that weekend of the Olympics. And we rushed back and we got back here and we watched the game on the TVs. So you remember that? Yeah, you were there that weekend. I remember that. Look, you seriously? Oh, it's great. I remember that so well. But that's what he's saying. Look back and remember that day. Or probably my favorite one, maybe a little bit more recent for you guys. October, let's say 28th. Toronto Blue Jays versus Texas Rangers, Game 5. Crazy 7th inning. Do you guys remember where you were when?
Right here.
We were watching every year.
You guys remember where you were?
Here.
You were here?
Yeah.
You guys are lucky. I remember, okay, for me, I remember this clear as day. This is kind of funny. Believe it or not, I lead worship at the church that I work at down in Virginia. And we just got finished worship practice, and it's like 6:30, 7 o'clock on a Wednesday night when the game was. And there's me and a couple of junior high boys. We're crowded around my laptop in the back of the youth room watching, just waiting for the other kids to come up. And finally, our youth director comes to us and says, "All right, boys, we got to get going." Just as like the big flip of the century comes around. I remember that. And I can look back on that day. I remember the excitement on my face. I remember the emotions that I had. I remember the kids that were around me. I remember that because that day was really special to me because my Blue Jays actually did something in the playoffs. But I remember that day. And this, stories aside, this is the message that God is telling these people. Look, I am proud of you guys for finally starting to build a temple. And I'm so proud of you guys. I'm going to give you that peace that you, as a nation, easily long for. And you guys have continued to build a temple. I know it's not going to be easy. I know it's not where you guys want to be, but I promise you I'm going to make it great. And from this day on, because I'm so proud of you guys for building the temple, I'm going to reward you guys so much more. From this day on, remember this, I'm going to bless you guys beyond anything you could possibly imagine. And that temple, that spiritual symbol that we have to us, the same way that it was from the Israelites, is your number one priority if you want anything, spiritually or otherwise, to start going right in your life. Probably the simplest list I could come up with to close us off for today is that, look, there's so much that could possibly happen in your spiritual life. There's so much that could happen, but nothing is going to happen until you decide that your temple, your spiritual life, your importance of God in your life, until you decide that is your number one priority. I mean, you could get security and peace from other ways, I guess, maybe. But until you decide that your spiritual life is your number one priority, that's the point in time when God's going to look at you and say, yes, I'm proud of you. I'm going to give you that peace that you long for. I'm going to give you security. Guess what? You keep it up, you be faithful to me, I'm going to bless you beyond anything you could possibly imagine. February, I know it was the last weekend in February, 7 years ago. It's actually this past weekend, 7 years ago, was the day I gave my life to Christ officially. It was a snow camp weekend, believe it or not. I remember that clear as day. I can easily look back. I remember who the speaker was. I remember where we were. I remember what happened that weekend. I can look back, consider this day. I remember that day so easily. My life has changed so much since then, thank goodness, but I was a messed up kid. I was so weird, and I'm so happy that God has changed me. I can easily look back on that day and say, thank goodness that I decided my spiritual life was finally important to me. And it's been amazing and been blessed beyond anything I could possibly imagine since then. This is the challenge I'm presenting to you guys. It's up to you to decide. You're going to look at it a little bit more in your small groups, talk about this in your own way. But my challenge to you is that it's very simple. What's your number one priority? Spiritual life? God, glorifying God, letting everyone else know how powerful God is in your life, or everything else? That's what I got for you guys tonight. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it. You guys are free to go. Small groups, older leaders, I got questions up here for you guys.